This is Chris Russell with HBC Real Estate Investors Academy. Thank you for joining us for our January RIA event. Today we're joined by Michael Bowman with Anderson Business Advisors. Michael's going to be talking about a few key things that we need to start off the year right. We're going to be talking about setting up an entity. He's going to be talking about structuring tax-wise what's going to be beneficial for you and your entity. And really what's going to be beneficial to get you going through this year and be successful in real estate investing. Michael, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it. How are you, sir?
Great, Chris. Thank you for having me. I've been traveling all over the country before the pandemic, teaching about this. Generally, I teach a 3-day event, and I love sharing with strategies with people who are taking the time to invest and sacrifice. It's one of those things that when you've done it wrong so much, you want to keep other people from making those same mistakes. And so any opportunity I have to share these tips, tricks, and techniques, I'm happy to do so. I feel like it kind of fits in with my life plan. When I was when I first became an attorney, I was a litigation attorney. So I was the person suing people and taking assets. And so I feel like if I teach and I help other people, it helps to redeem the stuff that I used to do in my previous career as a plaintiff's lawyer. So thank you for helping me in my redemption period.
You're very welcome. We're very pleased to have you here. Thank you.
So let's go ahead and get started. What I've done with this presentation is I basically went through and I wanted to take everything that we teach in a 3-day course and kind of drill it down. Make sure that the points I'm exposing the audience to so that they know there's a thing to be aware of, and they also know that there's a solution to that problem that they might face. Give a little background. I think it's always important is, hey, why is Michael up here? Why should I listen? We've been doing this since 1999. And again, anyone who works at Anderson has a background in tax or asset protection law, and has a guiding light of working with investors. And it's very important to have that guiding light, because when you're working with investors, you need to look forward as opposed to behind you. Too many professionals get into the game after the problems occurred. You've got attorneys who, you get sued, and they say, okay, well, we're going to take care of this for you. And I hate using the word take care, because it's not being taken care of. It's just being taken advantage of most of the time. Or accountants, they say, okay, let's look at what historically was done. At Anderson, what we've done is just kind of flip this around. We want to get you protected before the harm has occurred. We want to look at your taxes, and we want to go ahead and do some tax planning. One thing I added this morning was a section on tax planning. And it's because there's things that we can do as real estate investors that will make a huge difference on our tax returns. Now, I don't have enough time to go into it, and that's where we have a full day of this that we get into more detail. We're a very educated, education-based firm. We want to educate our clients so that there's synergy that goes on. An educated client is a better client. So kind of give you how that all fits in. We have what we call the Anderson system, and how it works is, traditionally we want to focus on asset protection because we need to protect the assets that you have. And you'll find out as life goes on, you start learning more about real estate, that real estate investors have a big bullseye on them, a big target on their backs. All your tenants think you have deep pockets. Even during the big recession that happened, it was amazing to see how many landlords were getting sued. Now I had access to their financials, and I said, well, they might have a lot of properties, but they don't have a lot of cash, and there's nothing to get out of them because most of them were upside down. But that didn't change the perception of the general public of a landlord is deep pockets, and even the plaintiff's attorneys would go after it. Then we have to do tax planning as part of the system, and business planning. Far too many attorneys or accountants come into it and say, hey, I'm going to show you how to pay no taxes. That could be good for you, but in most cases, it's really bad for you because you're not showing any income. If you're not showing any income, you can't create arbitrage or you can't leverage out the assets and create more wealth. Chris, I see you shaking your head. I know that you've ran into this, and there's always the balance, right?
Oh, many times. In fact, a lot of times when you're trying to get any kind of lending or any kind of loan, you run into an issue with your debt to income. So I mean, if
Yes,
you're having everything wiped off, it's going to hinder you, and it's going to hinder your ability to be able to get a loan or any kind of financing to be able to purchase more properties and continue expanding your portfolio.
right?
We've had that happen firsthand. We thought, okay, we'll do as many write-offs as possible so we can save as much money as possible.
Me too.
And everybody likes to put a little extra money in their pocket, but we've found out that it's actually more of a hindrance business wise than it is it's more of a hindrance than it is a positivity or a positive action.
Correct, and that's what we do is there's some business entities that we'll be covering. Maybe we want to form a C corporation, so you're generating that wealth, but you're also showing income. There's deductions that I'm going to be going over because I love deductions that we can take with the C corporation, and just by some proper planning, we can get both the best worlds in that we can get lowering our taxes and get the benefits still. Because if you're writing it off through the corporation, as long as it's a business related expense, then we could go ahead and get that benefit. But then we can also show income. And I guess it's tax efficiency would be, far too people say, hey, you want show me how to eliminate my taxes. And I said, not eliminate, let's go ahead and minimalize your taxes, pay your own fair share, but nothing more. And then as real estate investors, I include this in most of my presentations because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen real estate investors build up their wealth and their portfolio only to, at the end of the day, leave a mess for their heirs. And so one of the things we want to do is do some legacy planning. And I kind of maybe look at it from my perspective. I built up my wealth from basically nothing. When I graduated from law school, I could make top ramen 50 different ways. I had no money. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, put some egg in there, maybe some peas, corn, and maybe some chicken if you could afford it, right?
Oh man. I've been at the point where it was cup ramen and crushed flaming hot Cheetos. That was a meal.
Now I know
broke
51 different ways. This is fantastic. And I look at it, I've got 2 small children, and I don't want to just leave them what my wife and I have put together for them to be the king of their fraternity, for them to blow it all, to get into problems that created by wealth. And so there's some strategies I'll be showing you later on. Again, I wish I had 3 days, but we'll get you into a class and kind of this is kind of an introduction. When we're looking at structuring a real estate investor, we want to look at 4 different areas. We want to look at your long-term holds, and everything evolves in the evolution of a life of a real estate investor. Some people are starting off doing short-term, wholesaling, quick turns to generate some capital to go ahead and get that mailbox money, is what I call it. And then some other people have created wealth through their retirement accounts, and they're not aware that they can go ahead and use that to invest in properties. We have a very narrow, I guess, vision when it comes to what's out there in the public. A lot of people think, oh, hey, I worked for this AT&T for 26 years. That money has to stay with AT&T. It's not true. Once you discontinue service, you can start controlling that wealth and building it. And I'd much rather turn my 401k into more and more money, as opposed to paying someone to lose money in the market and paying those exorbitant fees. By taking control, as long as you got the education and I think it's very powerful. And then again, we need to go ahead and pass our wealth down. Let's get into it. So when we're looking at asset protection, 2 rules: don't own anything and don't do anything, and you won't be sued. Okay, no one will come after you. I've never seen a homeless person get sued ever. Like, Chris, I don't know if you have, but those guys can get away with everything because no one's going to go after them. And so that that might be fine for other individuals, but the people who are on this conference, it's not fine for. So what I would add would be 2 lines, and I would say and you're not going to be able to read that, your name. Okay. And that's ditto. Okay. Don't own anything in your own name, and don't do anything in your own name. Don't generate wealth. Don't do active business. And then also with that, don't own your assets where you're conducting active businesses. If you are, if you have a rental portfolio, and you're building up that stable of homes, don't be doing quick turns in the same entity that you're doing the rental end. Lumping all those eggs in one basket, because that rental activity, that active side of business, is risky. It exposes a lot of harm. And also we want to start looking at compartmentalization of the different assets. One of the things I like to also get in front of is far too many professionals say, hey, just get more insurance. That is what I hear far too often. In the beginning of my career, I'd hear, people saying, well, my accountant said, get more insurance and insurance will take care of me, get an umbrella policy. And it was kind of one of those nails on a chalkboard to me. And the reason why is when I did plaintiff's work and defense work, I saw the instances of when insurance wouldn't kick in. For the people watching, if you haven't read your policies and analyzed your policies lately, please do, because you're going to be shocked. It's toward the end of the policy of all the exclusions that's in your policy. Insurance companies are not in the business of paying out. And so what we see also is, yeah, they wouldn't be that wealthy, right? They wouldn't have those massive portfolios and do the returns that are available, right, Chris?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I know firsthand with a couple of partners that we've been partnered with, when you have an insurance claim, the insurance company will do almost anything they can to find any kind of loophole to get out of actually paying out the policy. When they have to pay out a policy, they look at it as they're losing money.
Sure.
So they're going to try and do everything they can to wiggle their way out of it.
Oh, by claiming it was an act of God, but not really the God that they were talking about, and you were talking about. It was, black mold is something that I'm running to nonstop because insurance coverage doesn't cover black mold, and we're seeing that more and more. Black mold's become of the asbestos of, the asbestos was like back in the 80s, 90s. Those were the plaintiff's attorneys. You saw them all over TV. Now it's black mold. Even Ed McMahon came into one of those lawsuits and got a pretty penny out of it. The other thing we have to worry about is snooping attorneys. Again, I put this in here just to kind of expose what you guys will go through. When I was a plaintiff attorney and a client would come in, I wanted to analyze and look at the defendant, because I couldn't take a case that I couldn't get paid out on, right? So I would do an asset locator search and, maybe even hire a company like the one in front of you right now. And what I would do is I'd find out how much the defendant owned. And the reason why I would do that is a simple fact that if I found out that they had a lot of assets, hey, I'm taking the case, right? The merits for most attorneys don't really matter. It's whether they can get paid on or even get a little bit of hush money or nuisance value out of the case, which is ridiculous because, again, we worked so hard to put together our assets and saved. It's bad that someone's going to come and prey upon us. And so one of the things we look at is doing some privacy planning. Now, there's some ways that you can get carried away, and what we want to do is find a balance of privacy in our activities. One of the things I do want to keep private is all of my assets that I'm holding long term. That would be kind of like the rule. Long-term assets holding, long-term, keep those private. Your short-term, where you're flipping properties, a lot of times you're going to be entering into contracts, and your name will need to be associated with that so you can enter into those contracts. But long-term, your rental properties, your cash is another thing that gets overlooked quite a bit. Your cash is going to be your ability to go ahead and purchase more real estate. And so we want to go ahead and own our business entities behind the scenes, privately, not in public record. And there's ways that we do that by the way that we structure them. The other thing we want to do when we look at long-term properties is classify as many as long-term capital gains because it's a lower tax rate, as opposed to short-term or active income. It's our own tax rate that we're paying currently, plus generally it's an additional 15.3%. Most people call it FICA. I call it FICA. Because FICA sounds like a four-letter word, and it's the way I look at it. Extra 15.3%, that's your paycheck. And so we want to look at the different types of income, and then our tax-deferred income and tax-free income, how to go ahead and maybe arrange our affairs so that we're able to benefit from our activities but pay lower taxes. So let's get right into the long-term strategies. the buy and holds, and how we use different entities to go ahead and facilitate some asset protection and some tax planning with it. Number one, there's some variables that we need to be looking at. If you're a cash buyer and you're just going and buy the property, we don't have to worry about things like transfer taxes, due on sale clauses, things like that. A lot of times, the due on sale comes when you have a mortgage. And a lot of times, if you transfer from your own name into an entity, the bank looks at it like, hey, they've moved this piece of property. We're not going to be able to go ahead and get our security out of this property. And so in most mortgages, almost all of them basically, they have what we call the due on sale provision. The due on sale provision, we can generally override it by transferring it first, the piece of property, into a land trust. Because underneath the Garn-St. Germain Act, we can go ahead and transfer it into revocable trust, and they can't call the note due. Now, the way that we set this up is we title the property into the land trust, and then we assign the beneficial interest into an LLC. And the reason why we do that is because now, for all intents and purposes, that property is held in an LLC. And why that's important is a simple fact that if something bad happens here, the liability can't escape. Now, let's say from the other end, if you run into Beelzebub, right? Some guy who wants to make a little quick dollar off you because he thinks you're a real estate investor, there's some protections. So the asset's protected from you and you're protected from the asset. And so then after that, what we want to do is we want to look at it from a bigger picture standpoint. How do we get privacy, and how do we get stronger protections with our real estate from us, and again, from the asset to us? To avoid the due on sale and some transfer fees, if we have the property in our own name, again, we're going to have the property owned by a land trust. The beneficial interest, again, the owner, the benefit of the property comes down into an LLC, which now we get the protection. Now, in most states, and I know you guys do a lot in Texas, but I'm a real estate investor, and people say, "Hey, where do you invest?" And I say, "Wherever I find a great deal," right? And so, because the law's evolved, and it has evolved in Texas also, but all over the country, we had an origination of the law, and what the law said was, "Hey, you know what? The LLC's assets are the LLC's assets. The individual owner's assets are the individual owner's assets," and it doesn't cross over. State legislation that come through and they said, well, that doesn't really seem fair in some cases. And so what we saw was, individuals piercing through and grabbing assets out. And that becomes a problem. And so what it lets us do is it says, okay, you know what? Well, if that's the law in some states, why even monkey with it? Why not go ahead and just have these LLCs be owned by a jurisdiction that keeps that law intact? The origination, the general intent of the drafters of the LLC code. Why don't we just go ahead and use a safe jurisdiction? Now look what happens. In this case, here's Beelzebub again, and here are you. You're happy because you realize you are protected. They try to get in through here, and the state law, where this is located, filed, and we domicile it. There's some things we do to make sure that it stands up and that it is actually domiciled in Wyoming or Nevada. Wyoming's becoming more popular because it's cheaper, but it also has really strong protection, and they keep updating that law to get stronger. But what happens again is it bounces off. So now we're not worried about Texas and the way they've changed their LLC protections, where they weakened it. It actually got weakened first in California, then Colorado, and then over in Florida. And then it just seemed like this is a bad thing to say, but it was like a virus that spread. And everyone knows how quickly a virus can spread nowadays. I'm sorry to use that as an example, but it really is kind of true in the way that I've seen state legislatures just go ahead and weaken the protections. Well, in the cases of Wyoming and Nevada, every time a state has weakened it or put some sort of question or doubt in the way that things are handled, Wyoming and Nevada have updated their statutes regarding the LLC and taken it away. Like Florida said, single member limited liability companies don't have asset protection. Well, what Wyoming and Nevada did was they updated it and said, even single member limited liability companies. So it's in the state statute. Why it's so important to have the state statute is that the state statute controls and it doesn't leave it up to a judge. And so what we do at Anderson is really important is we go ahead and make sure that we use the laws that are actually tried and proven. And we don't want any of our clients to be test cases for a new law that came out. I know there's a lot of attorneys out there that want to have their name in a journal, or they want to try a case all the way to Supreme Court. I always look at that as a failure, because what you're doing is basically using your own ego, and the client's paying for it to get your name in public record. What I want to do is make sure my clients sleep at night, and that if it ever gets a challenge, that it's going to work. What we're relying on is basically we're keeping ourselves safe and our assets safe, and we're making it so that whatever we do personally, with the exceptions of fraud, I know no one does fraud in this, and no one does gross negligence. Those two will actually override this. But in just day-to-day business, that your assets are protected from you. And with the charging order, it's available in Wyoming and Nevada. And what it does, it prevents any judgment creditor from becoming a partner in your business, demanding any income out of your business, forcing distribution of assets, and also participate in the management of your business. Now, the next part of this is really kind of cool, because there's also a poison pill that the IRS gave us. I know you're not generally thinking that, hey, IRS has given us anything, but through Rev Ruling 77-137, it also indicates that if a person goes ahead and sues you, gets a judgment, and gets a charging order against your interest in your business entity or your LLC, it says because they're entitled to money that's supposed to be distributed out of the LLC, they also have to pay the taxes. It's called phantom income, basically. And it's a pretty powerful a dissuader when we're talking about someone who wants to get a judgment against you and exercise on that judgment. If they don't get paid, because you're in control of when distributions come out, they could, and I say could because there's some exceptions to it, they could be liable for your taxes. And I just think that that's a pretty powerful thing to come to the table with, and saying, hey, listen, you can get real about what I owe you, and we can maybe do a settlement, or I'm not going to go ahead and distribute any money out. That means you're not getting any cash. And because 77-137, you also could be paying the taxes on the money that's generated in this business entity. I find and this goes back to my litigation days, I find it puts us on a level playing field with these out of control plaintiffs. Far too often we hear about these crazy judgments that come out. And what happens is with these crazy judgments, it all of a sudden becomes the norm as opposed to something that's way far out there. Just to show you guys the statute really quickly, and this is why we anchor our asset protection plan in Wyoming or Nevada. Nevada's written very similar to this, but it's almost like the legislature got together and they said, hey, look, we know we're going to be dealing with attorneys, so we can start off by saying this is the exclusive remedy, but an attorney's going to argue that exclusive doesn't really mean exclusive. So we need to go ahead and add in that other remedies, including foreclosure, blah, 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 are not available. And I love this because it's like a belt and suspenders, and that's as an attorney, that's just my nature. I love that they said, hey, it says exclusive here, but again, an attorney is going to argue exclusive doesn't mean exclusive, so let's go ahead and take away everything that they're going to argue. And it's one of the rare times, and sorry if there's any politicians out there, but it's one of the rare times a politician got it right or the state legislature got it right. The other thing when we're doing with our long-term real estate, we put a lot of effort into managing our portfolio. And so what we can do to kind of save on some taxes and move some money is go ahead and put a corporation in to manage your portfolio. And what I'm going to say is manage the LLCs that own your rental homes. And just to quickly kind of give an overview, because this corporation is doing work for this LLC, a fee can be paid. So money can move up to the corporation. And what that does is when it flows down to you, that's going to decrease your taxable income. The cool thing about it's like get your cake and eat it too. Now all of a sudden cash is up in here, and now you get business deductions. Now those business deductions is I'm going to show you in just a little bit. Those coincidentally they actually benefit us too. So let's go ahead. That's long term. What we're going to do again. The main goal is with this we want to separate, compartmentalize not only from us but from the assets in each other. Then we also want to go ahead and implement a tax saving strategy into that.
So I guess my question would be, with the umbrella company being the parent company of all these other companies, when you're building a portfolio, how many properties do you want to put in each one of those LLCs or S Corp, whatever entity you're doing? How many properties should you have per entity to protect yourself?
Chris, that's a great question. And it's something that's kind of special to me, it's special to the firm, because we've evolved in our answer. And it probably, if you would have attended, maybe 10 years ago, you would have heard us say, hey, put about 250,000 of equity into each LLC and then start a new LLC. 250,000 in this LLC. And it was to save our clients money. LLCs individually, they cost money to set up. Then what we have had happened, and I'll cut the story shorter, is a client asked us, well, how do you guys do it personally? And we all basically had the same mantra as, hey, one property per LLC for us, because it's cheap for us to set up LLCs. But also we worked way too hard to build our portfolio. We don't want to lose any properties if something goes bad, because it will take out all the properties in the specific LLC. We don't look at dollar amounts anymore, because how long did it take you to save your down payment for that property, or to save the entire purchase price of that rental? How much appreciation are you losing? How much mailbox money, the rental income, are you losing? So all these factors kind of weighted it out, where our advice right now and our business model has changed in the fact that we put one property per LLC, and we changed our model, in fact, that we have a package that's an unlimited LLC. So our clients are encouraged to go ahead and separate their assets out. One lawsuit, if you have all your properties in one LLC, can wipe out all of your efforts for the past 10, 15, 20 years, depending. So that's a great question, Chris. There are some exceptions to it, but my general rule is one property per LLC, because again, I came from nothing. I don't want to lose that mailbox money. I don't want to lose it in retirement, because that is going to be a supplementation of my retirement. Also, the mailbox money that's coming in. I don't want to lose the appreciation. There's some properties where I pat myself on the back because I think I'm a genius when it comes to where I picked the locations to go ahead and invest. And I'm probably, you guys do the same thing too, is you kind of look at where things are growing and you try to get ahead of it. And when you nail it, it's just like, look, I am a genius. And then my wife says, well, you're a genius ass, but don't worry about it. No, I'm just kidding. So excellent, Chris. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is something, that's one of those things that are out there that I hear way too many attorneys and accountants say, hey, group them together. And I just say, you're not saving a lot of efficiency, but you're exposing your hard work and your sacrifice and your future by grouping them together. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I ask because from a personal standpoint, I would hate to spend 20, 30 years building a portfolio of 15, 20, or even more properties, and then have something happen and something happens to that LLC and I lose the entire portfolio. Well, there goes all my equity that I built in the properties. There goes all the cash flow that I'm getting, even though, on a personal standpoint, I don't really count on the cash flow. I always set that aside in an escrow account or a separate account. I mean, God forbid you have to replace the roof or the AC goes out.
Yep.
Pull that money out of your pocket. No, take the money that the tenants have been giving you and use their money to fix your property.
Oh, that brings a tear to my, I love that story. Yes.
So a lot of times it's about the long-term hold, and that way you can build equity in the property. If you lose all your properties that are in that LLC, there went all your equity. There went all that time spent building your retirement.
And even if it's not all the properties, it's just a ton of hard work and sacrifice and future too. Yeah, we're on the same page for that, and that's our solution. We also altered our business model, to kind of be in conjunction with that kind of that guiding light. When we start, so we looked at long term. We want to go ahead and separate it from ourselves and from each other. We want to get some tax advantages. With our short term, when we're generating wealth and building, in doing short term activities such as wholesaling, quick turns, we got to worry about something from a tax perspective, and it's called dealer status. And before we get in there, do you want to go ahead and take a break?
Yeah, I was going to say we'll go ahead and right here.
Jet Lending is your fast and friendly asset-based lender. Whether you're an investor trying to lend money, buying to flip, buying to rent, refinancing, transactional funding, or involved in small balance commercial, we have just the product for you. Our loans are tailored for your needs to grow your inventory and wealth with a lender who wants you to succeed. Jet Lending provides you with a dedicated team to analyze your potential investments and walk you through the entire process, whether it's your first deal or your 50th deal. We back our investors and borrowers with the support, education, and data they need before they spend any cash. When time is a factor, look no further than Jet Lending and our ability to close within 3 days of clear to close from title and appraisal report back in. For true asset-based lending with no hidden fees, teasers, or gimmicks, look no further than Jet Lending. Jet Lending, Texas's friendly asset-based lender since 2004.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Barnes. I'm with Net Worth Realty. Net Worth Realty is the largest purveyor of wholesale real estate in the United States. We're located in about 19 markets. And at the core of what we do is that we're a wholesaler. So we buy distressed properties and pass those along to investors looking to build wealth. My role at Net Worth Realty is an acquisition associate. So basically what I do is go out and contract properties every month and bring them into our portfolio. I'm located in the Heights office. We have 3 offices in Houston. The Heights, which I mentioned, an office in Spring, just south of the Woodlands, and an office in Clear Lake. Between those 3 offices, we typically acquire about 45 properties on average a month. About half of those are flips, and the other half are buy and holds. For people that don't have the cash to take those down, we actually have a partnership with a lender, 212 Loans. And 212 Loans will lend at 70% for flips, and they have a temp to perm strategy for those who are looking to buy and hold. If you need money, whether it's for a project that we have or an outside project, don't hesitate to contact me. Again, Net Worth does fix and flips. We also do buy and holds, and our lender feels the same way. They're very aggressive in their lending approaches and will match just about any rate that we can find. If you want to reach me, my phone number is 832-577-5156. If you want a little background on our company, our website is www.networthrealtyusa.com. If you have a project that you're thinking about taking down and you're unsure about it, call me and I'll give you an honest opinion without trying to go around it. I've been doing this for 17 years. Thank you.
Hey everyone, Haley Gant here from Quest Trust Company. We are super excited to be a part of these events here with the Houston Buyers Club. For those of you guys who are not as familiar with Quest Trust Company, we are a great resource for investors out there who are looking to utilize those old 401ks or IRAs to invest into real estate and other privately held assets instead of having all of your retirement funds in the stock market or in mutual funds. Quest Trust Company can teach you and the people that you work with how to use your IRAs to diversify and invest into privately held assets. So we see a lot of our clients use their IRAs to purchase properties, be private lenders, and invest passively into apartment complexes and commercial deals. If any of this sounds interesting to you, give us a call at 855-FUN-IRAs or visit our website at questtrust.com, and you can chat live with an IRA specialist right there through our website, and we can set up a free one-on-one consultation with you. Especially in today's age, as people are trying to earn wealth, save for retirement, and pay less taxes, having a self-directed IRA is one of the biggest tools that you can add to your tool belt to build tax-deferred and tax-free growth. If you are interested in learning more about these topics, be sure to check out some of our other events and webinars that we have as well. Quest every year hosts and attends about 600 events a year. Obviously now everything is completely online, but we have a ton of webinars every single week. We bring in a lot of different guest speakers, and we actually host some virtual networking happy hours twice a month on the first and third Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. If you want to know more about these events, again, visit our website at questtrust.com. You can reach out to an IRA specialist right there through our website, and we'll be more than happy to help you get started and help answer any of your questions for you. I hope y'all enjoyed the rest of the presentations here offered by the Houston Buyers Club, and I hope to see you guys soon.
All right, welcome back. We just got done covering our long-term activities, our mailbox money, the long-term investing, keeping those properties separate from each other, making sure that the properties don't influence or subject any unnecessary liability to each other, and then also that we don't subject the properties to the liability, or make sure that we protect the properties from us and us from the properties. Right now, we're going to switch gears a little bit and get into what we call short-term activities. And you guys are going to understand this. This is going to be your quick turns, wholesaling, anything that's done generally, and we hope, less than 1 year. And I say we hope because as real estate investors, we've always had we all have had that experience where you think it's going to be a short-term flip. And I see you're smiling, Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, it's only going to be a few months, right?
We had one that was supposed to be a 3-month rehab, and 8 months later, we're still wondering why it didn't done.
Oh yeah.
You run into a few hiccups from time to time. We definitely have seen that.
Absolutely. And so, that's why I say generally, again, with experience, you start seeing that things don't generally or don't always fit inside that box. And, so we want to make sure we look at it. When you're doing those short-term activities, something we really have to be careful of, and I'm sure some of people are running into this trap. They don't even know they're in the trap. It's being tagged as a dealer. And the reason why people don't understand that they're in this trap is the fact that it's an intent-based test. You flip one property and the intent was to make a profit. The IRS says, hey, you know what? You're a dealer in real estate. Because you are a dealer in real estate, we're going to tag you as if you're doing it by the sweat of your brow. This is your inventory. This is this is your activity, and now we get it taxed at a higher rate. You lose your 1031 exchange, the ability to go ahead and defer that taxable income down the line. I kicking it down the line. You can kick it forever until you die, and then it's always tax free. The stepped up basis. But you'll lose that if you tag as a dealer. You lose your depreciation, that juicy depreciation that we love as real estate investors. Long-term capital gain rates. Your passive income, and this is what I mean. Everything turns into active income. And why that's bad is that FICA guy comes in 15.3% extra in taxes. When I do a deal, I do an ROI analysis of how much did I make percentage-wise. Imagine paying an extra 15% in taxes, 15.3. Now you're working even harder than you need to. No more installment sale deferral if you do an installment sale. And really quickly, I'm sure you guys are knowledgeable regarding it, but for those who aren't, installment sale is when you sell a piece of property and you get money over a period of time. A portion of that is going to be taxable, and of course it's a portion, but generally you're paying taxes over that period of time. If you're tagged as a dealer, all that profit is immediately taxed in that current tax year. So it's a pretty bad thing to be taxed as a dealer. So what we want to do is remove it from us personally, and we're going to move it over into an entity. One thing that I did put in here that I want to make sure everyone's aware of, those of you who are starting off or who are doing wholesaling deals, and I find even veteran real estate investors do wholesaling because they might find a deal. They can't take the deal right now from time, money, what have you. So they just wholesale the deal to another real estate investor. One thing, and Chris, you probably ran into this. One thing we want to make sure is that the contract is assignable. Okay. far too often I found where the contract wasn't assignable. I've had attorneys, representing the seller saying, hey, you have to, this person has to close in this. And the buyer or the wholesaler is that they can't close. And especially in Texas, this is really tough because real estate is unique in Texas and it's specific performance. They really got you. The wholesalers, if you don't do it properly, preferably we'd want to do it in either a wholesale trust or a corporation, so that we can go and assign the benefits over there. Chris, did you have something that you wanted to add to that?
I actually had a quick question, Michael. So when you're wholesaling, for example, I know a lot of wholesalers that use a one-page contract. Is
Yes.
that something you'd recommend, or would you maybe recommend using the Trek 9-page? And then when you're trying to assign it, if you put in there the buyer as your LLC, and then on the second line and or assignee, does that cover you, or is there maybe more to it? That maybe is that it, or is maybe there more extensive things that you have to do to be able to cover yourself and make sure you can assign that property and not be held liable?
The things you just mentioned are it's like good, better, best. And I'm glad you're pointing this out. Number one, and or assigns, I always have in there. You always have. Now, the length of the contract, there's a lot of contracts that are drafted with a bunch of BS boilerplate. However, ones that have been vetted by an attorney or seasoned real estate investors, one page would worry me a little bit just because I get paid to worry. And I'm damn good at it. I worry way too much, right? But and or assigns, but I really prefer, because you get your cake and eat it too. You get the ability to go ahead and get the taxation with a corporation coupled with maybe a trust. Then we go ahead and just assign whatever interest you have in the entity or the trust to that new buyer, and the seller can't do anything about it because basically you're not changing anything of the entity is still there. The trust is still there. That was the party origination. And so, I do like the little safety thing of and or assigns. Where we are finding out currently is that some sellers are aware of the hiccups that some wholesalers can have. And when they see and or assigns, they're like, hey, you fooled me once. And they won't let you. That's why we prefer using a corporation coupled with a wholesale trust. Is really going to be the safer way, the efficient way, especially with the current environment in real estate. If you start goofing around, some sellers will say, hey, you know what, I'll just go to the next person, and you lose the deal. So we kind of have to dance or dance. That kind of brings me to an important part is, let's go ahead and try to use the structure, but get the deal done, and Anderson can fix it, right? I mean, we can get it coupled into, from a tax efficiency standpoint, generally almost all the time, and from an asset protection standpoint. When we get into these short terms, we need to start looking at, hey, you're doing a business, and so we want to fall under the business tax code, earning and then spending, and then getting taxed what's left over. You're in the pursuit of a profit, so you qualify for the business deductions. Don't continue to operate underneath your personal tax code, the earn, the tax, and the spend. It's just very inefficient. When we're doing flips, I would do every flip in a separate LLC. Now, this is going to be an in-state LLC, wherever the flip's taking place. You create an LLC, you title the property in an LLC, and maybe we might use a trust, and again, in that one-day program, we'll cover it. And then this LLC is owned by your corporation. The reason why is we get our asset protection here, and we get our tax mitigation here. You see how we're getting our both, best of both worlds. And I'm going to show you all the, this is basically our expense machine. And it's the way we want to go ahead. And it also keeps us from getting tagged as a dealer because the corporation's doing the activity as opposed to you individually. So that's how we're going to do our fix and flips. Now, one thing to add to this, Chris, is once you get done with it, kill that LLC. Pay your bills and then shut it down. There's a way we want you to do it. But, we don't want to do another flip inside the LLC. And the reason why is any liability from the previous deal comes forward. We've had situations where clients put another property in an existing LLC that did a previous flip. That previous flip, there was a problem with the sump pump and some leakage into the basement, and they were doing, of course, Murphy's Law. This was the high dollar flip. This was a cheap flip, and so the high dollar flip is inside that LLC, and those assets can now be used to satisfy the cheap flip that happened. When I talk about a corporation, think about everything that you're spending in this real estate venture. I love education. I've spent a ton of money on education, and I valued every single piece of it. I have saved more money by taking education than I've spent, because it's saved me from making costly mistakes. You get startup and organizational expenses. You travel to seminars. You travel to go look at properties. Everything is going to be a deduction. Some of these things you're already paying for personally. You're just not getting a business deduction out of it. One of the cool things that I like doing with my corporation is doing what we call the 280A, and we'll go into more detail of this during the full day of tax and asset protection class that we offer. Is the 280A. It's where you can rent your personal residence to your corporation. That money is tax-free to you as an individual. It's a business expense to your business. So think about that. You do some flips, you get some cash generated in your corporation rents your personal residence out, and that money comes into your pocket tax-free. It's under Section 280A. It's called the Augusta Rule, but it's a pretty cool way to get money in your pocket tax-free. It also decreases the taxable income of your corporation. Meals, home office is another one that people overlook too much. We like to put in an accountable plan in all our corporations, and with the accountable plan, it basically takes us where we can start writing off a lot of expenses that otherwise would be lost if we ran it as a sole proprietorship or in our own name. The reason why I put retirement planning right coupled with short-term investing is we're going to be using our corporation. When we're doing active activities and we start paying ourselves a salary, it opens the door for us to make contributions to a retirement plan. This is one of the things I see far too few real estate investors do is, instead of just taking all the money and spending it, or their family spends it, what they can be doing is making money inside the corporation, taking a salary, and at the same time making contributions over to a retirement plan. And this is something that I've seen, and it's one of my proudest things I look at with our clients, is I see people go from doing wholesales and getting into flips and then getting into long-term holds. They start paying themselves a salary out of the corporation, making contributions over to a retirement plan, rolling over their existing retirement plans, and now controlling that money. And also, I think the biggest thing, it kind of makes me a little bit more relieved that they're planning for their retirement. Some people hadn't planned for their retirement. Other people, it makes me happy because it's going to raise their level of retirement by going ahead and taking control of their retirement, putting it in their hands instead of, again, like I said earlier, paying all these fees and having someone lose the money. Some people say, well, why not just get an IRA? I put down some things of, in this current environment, why I wouldn't use just a simple IRA that has a custodian. And the reason why is you have to have a custodian deal with all these aspects. It delays the purchase. In this environment, if you have to wait 10 to 14 days for your custodian to sign off on the deal, to get the deal done, to question you on the deal, then all of a sudden it's a weekend, you can lose the deal. We prefer going ahead and creating what we call a QRP, Qualified Retirement Plan, that we have control with, that we're not subject to all these rules, and that we get, I guess, the control that we want and need as real estate investors. How we do it is we go ahead and form our corporation. That corporation is going to sponsor a QRP. The ones we use is either a pension or a solo, and you guys have probably already heard about these, but the solo 401k for mom and pop shops, or like it says solo, if you're individuals, we can create these, and then it gives us the control. And the reason why it gives us the control is because we are now the trustee of the plan. Now what we want to do is, once we form this QRP, we want to go ahead and roll over existing plans. Okay, and now we got the control, and then we can also make contributions too. Now, what we can do here, hold real estate, buy and sell real estate, options, tax liens. If you're noticing, the only thing we can't really do is collectibles, and that's a very interpretation. But basically, it's putting us in control. The great thing and what I've seen with my clients is almost when their eyes get open is, wait a minute, I worked for AT&T for, again, 26 years. You mean I can take all that money and start using that for investing in real estate? Chris, do you have a lot of clients? I think you do have a lot of clients that invest in real estate with their retirement plans, right?
We do. We have a lot of people that use either their existing 401k or their IRA, and they use it to invest in real estate, or they lend it out as a passive private investor and let other people invest in real estate and just collect interest and everything on that. Which kind of brings me to another question, comparing a typical IRA or 401k or even a self-directed IRA as compared with the QRA. With the QRA,
QRP.
QRP, I'm sorry. With the QRP, do you have the same limitations if you wanted to lend out your money? Because I know with IRAs, you can't lend to people above or below, but you can go from side to side, maybe brothers, sisters, cousins, but you can't do mother, father, or son, daughter.
Prohibitive transactions are generally the same, and even if they're not, you start dancing. I look at QRPs as like a deity. You just have to have respect for them, and there's always ways around it. But the big thing is you're in control. Now, let's say that with this QRP that you did what we call a prohibited transaction. That deal would be unwound, but not the entire plan. Does that make sense? As opposed to doing it into your self-directed IRA, the entire plan would be unwound. And so there's some protections. Now, the other rules that you were talking about, no, with the QRP, you can borrow from the plan and you can pay it back over 5 years. This is kind of one of those things I'm like, I just have seen so much benefit from my clients. Some of my clients have come in and they've had high credit card debt. And what they did was, instead of borrow it from a bank or keep that high balance, they borrowed it from their own plan. That means they paid back their own plan, right? I mean, now their plan is making the interest. And they paid off their high credit card debt. And I think I see your face, Chris. I think you see where I'm going with this. What did it do to their FICO score? Raised it way up. Now they can borrow it from other sources at a lower rate. You see how cool like this whole system is, how it's all put together. Come on. It's you put the foundation in, then you build on it, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I couldn't get loans before. Now I'm getting loans at a great interest rate, and so it's it's something. The biggest thing is the control factor, and also coupled with that is the ability to do deals quickly, because you will have a checkbook. You are the trustee. If you see it, let's just say you're driving down the road, you see a property, it matches all it checks all the boxes, and you want it. Well, boom, you can just go ahead and write a check. I know there's a little, do you have the money, not have the money, what have you. You can also partner with your plan. There's ways to do that we'll teach you. But I just like it, which leads us into going ahead, and now that we've created all this wealth, how do we go ahead and pass it on? And we'll approach this after a break. Thanks.
Hey everybody, Tom Berry here with Investor Loan Source. I want to talk real quickly about the 3 things that makes Investor Loan Source different from other lenders. So the first thing that makes us different is what we call the ILS difference. And the difference is we don't use bank funding. So most hard money lenders will go to the bank, they'll get a credit line, and they'll use that money to lend to you. Now, why do you care where their money comes from? It's simple. When you get a bank line as a hard money lender and lend on that line, you have to use bank guidelines. Now, if you wanted to use bank guidelines, you would have probably went to your local bank, right? So that's the big difference. At Investor Loan Source, we don't use any bank lines. We use no bank financing whatsoever. 100% of our funds come from private investors. The second thing that makes us different is our unique product suite. We have loans that nobody else has. Some of these loans we've been doing for 5 and 6 years before they even became popular. For example, of course, we do the fix and flip loans. Every lender does those. But we also do rental loans. And we have a 5-year track record doing rental loans, 20-year, 30-year, fixed rates, ARMs, you name it, we have it available. We also invented a really cool loan if you like using the owner finance model. We call that our wrappable loan. So take a look at those loans. I think you'll find that we have some very unique products available to you. Our fix and flip loans start at very low interest rates in the single digits. Our rental loans start in the 6.99% range. So they are very affordable for real estate investors. We also love to do commercial loans. It doesn't matter the asset class. If it's a good deal, if it makes sense, we'll lend on it. And then the third thing that makes us different is our staff, the bulk of which are real estate investors. We don't look at ourselves as a lending company. We look at ourselves as real estate investors that lend. I think those are the 3 biggest differences between our company and others that you might look at. So please take a look around our website, and I hope you'll find a product that will help you to reach your goals. Thank you very much for looking.
I remember a question once, somebody said, hey, why should I use Andersen? Well, you could use a separate financial firm, a separate tax firm, a separate legal firm, and you could bounce them around and see if they could ever get on the same page. I mean, when was the last time they all got together and worked on your benefit?
And so at Andersen, what we've learned over the years is that it's best to combine both the tax and the asset protection and the financial planning in one space, so the clients feel like all their needs are being addressed and they're not having to be bounced around through multiple professionals who do not communicate. At Andersen, you're going to get this experience where when you come to us, everything is going to be handled for you from A to Z.
We design individualized, comprehensive plans for each of our clients. And when you work with us, you become part of the Andersen family.
We form tens of thousands of business entities every year in all 50 states.
We strive to provide world-class service for all of our clients.
Helping our clients pass their wealth down to their heirs and beneficiaries is an important part of what we do here at Andersen.
Our team of professionals answer our clients' questions and walk them through tax planning and asset protection strategies.
We've been around for 20 years, and it's been quite a journey to get to the point where we are today, where we have over 200 employees and offices over 3 different states. And I can tell you it's really been driven by our philosophies, and we want to make sure our clients understand asset protection, tax planning, and business planning. And this is what makes what Andersen does unique in our space.
A lot of folks are surprised when they talk to our attorneys and our accountants. We are teachers first. It doesn't do us a lot of good if a client is completely in the dark as to why we are doing what we're doing. We want to make sure the clients understand it and are actually in the driver's seat, driving us towards making sure that they're saving as much money as humanly possible.
We make sure that our clients know how to maintain their records and execute the best business practices to stay in compliance. That way we greatly minimize the threat of lawsuits and audits. We joke, we laugh, and we have fun at our seminars, but when it comes down to it, we're very serious about helping our clients become knowledgeable and successful.
Why don't people use Jet Lending to fund their real estate investments? Is it just for the speed? Is it the 100% financing options? Is it the asset-based long-term programs, the commercial programs, the anything to do with investment real estate programs? Is it our free real estate analysis, our free education videos, the way we can do everything online? At Jet Lending, you will have a dedicated team to help educate, comp, evaluate, and estimate your deal within 24 hours to give you the support, dedication, and expertise you need to get your next investments done with confidence. Do you still wonder why people use Jet Lending? Come aboard and find out. Jet Lending, your fast and friendly asset-based lender since 2004.
So let's go ahead and roll into how do we go ahead and we learned how to create wealth, protect our wealth. How do we go ahead and pass it on? And again, I add this to most of my presentations because I've seen it go really well, the process, I guess, and I've seen it go horribly wrong. I've had kids call me up and say, hey, what about my parents, and, they're thinking things are going to be locked up in probate for years. And it was a matter of me just saying, hey, go to your trust binder, their certificate of trust. And with the death certificate, now you can go to access, because you're the trustee, you can go access the funds. But the most part, everything's taken care of. It's all spelled out, all laid out. The more important part is go ahead and go through the grieving process and be there for the rest of your family. It's there's two ways to do it. And it's almost like lawyers have hidden the ball, and just most people think and expect that they have to go through probate. Well, that's not accurate at all. If you have a living trust, and we want to go ahead and not just take a standard living trust, but you need some extra provisions in there. It's the peace of mind. And I pulled a lot of our clients in the last few years, especially this last year with COVID, of hey, do you have a trust? Because you need medical care power of attorneys, and you need control even when you're alive if you've become incapacitated. And when they've said no, I said, why not? And a lot of it's like, hey, I'm healthy. Why would I get a trust? Or hey, you know what? I'm not going to die for years. Well, we know that's not accurate. And when my clients have gone ahead and moved forward with doing a trust, the amount of peace of mind has been incredible. They said, Michael, why didn't you force me to do this earlier? I said, well, I can't force anyone to do anything. They just mentioned it's so great to have it done. And now I can continue building my wealth, knowing that if I pass away, or if my spouse and I pass away, that everything's going to be taken care of. So it gives you peace of mind. Voids probate. This word probate, I hate it. It is such an archaic process. It's basically going to prove the document, going through a court process that takes about generally 12 to 18 months. At that time, everything's locked up. Family, they're losing assets out of the estate. The only person who wins in a probate is an attorney, and that's why you see attorneys doing wills for $99, because it's a guaranteed probate for them. Yes, it saves on the distribution of the estate because it's already laid out. It's called a living trust because it lives on, and it can minimize some of the estate taxes and the state estate taxes. The biggest thing that I love is it keeps family relationships intact. And what I mean by that is everything's laid out, including little knickknacks and the heirlooms, so the family doesn't fight. Maybe not fight as much, but there's always that referee. The trust is the referee that generally all I have to do is look at the trust. It says it right here. And so it takes away the whole fighting aspect of it. And then those legal fees, you don't need an attorney because the person who's named as the successor trustee is in control. And when people hear that, they're like, wait a minute, I don't have to pay $500 an hour? No, you don't. You're the successor trustee. You don't need an attorney to do all this stuff. With the real estate, you can go ahead and title it, or you can go ahead and transfer the membership certificates of your LLCs. I wanted to point this out, that the trust is effective immediately upon you signing it. And just because you move assets into a trust, another thing I want to kind of dispel a myth of is that you don't lose control of those assets because you are still the trustee. They're just inside the trust. You're the trustee, you're in control, and coincidentally, you are also the beneficiary. So you're benefiting from the assets too. They're just titled in the name of the trust. But the best thing is because they're in the trust, they avoid probate. And it also works even if you don't die. This situation happened quite a bit early on in the pandemic, where people were becoming incapacitated with COVID. And the problem was people didn't have medical care power of attorneys. They didn't have financial power of attorneys. There were family arguments over the level of care that the individual was to receive. And there were assets that needed to be paid on, but no one had control over the finances. So within the living trust, all these documents are there. So even if you become incapacitated, that the trust controls. One of the things I did want to put in here was because a lot of people think, hey, I die and I have 4 kids, one quarter, and it just gets all distributed out. Nowadays, that is a a plan that's used, I guess, a small percent of the time. Generally, people put in distribution controls. And what I mean by that is, I'll just take my kids, for instance. I have a daughter who's 5 months old, and that's why I've got the bags under the eyes, right? And I've got a son who's 4 years old, which that's why I have bags under my eyes, right? My son, I guarantee you, if he turns 18, he will be the king of his fraternity. He's going to have a lot of fun if he gets all that money right at 18. I mean, literally, there's, it would pain me if I passed away and he got all the wealth that my wife and I have generated. Plus, it wouldn't allow him to grow as an individual. And so I'll give you the way that we can control the estate. My trust, or my wife and I's trust, 10% at age 25, and then 10% at age 30, and then 40% at age 35, and then the remainder at age 40. Now, the best thing is it's a revocable trust, so I can change this at all. My wife and I can change this throughout our lifetime. I'll tell you why I've done something like this for my son is I want him and my daughter, they want them to go ahead and achieve their own goals. And if they get all the money at 18, I've seen it a lot in families where they didn't go and achieve their own goals. They didn't go to college. They didn't go and learn how to do real estate because they had all the money in the world, they thought, until they spent it all and it went away. It was a real disservice to those individuals because those parents kind of took that incentive to make it on your own. I wanted my kids to get a career, get a profession, and then at age 25, they'll get some seed money. And then at age 30, it also acts as a prenuptial agreement in the fact that if they get divorced here, all of this down here is protected because it hasn't been distributed out yet. And the future ex-spouse has no control over that, no claim to that. So it's a good thing for some of my clients who their kids have gotten divorced too. But the big thing is protect your beneficiaries from themselves, and encourage them to go ahead and get financial stewardship and get a profession, whether that entails education or a trade, but let them go ahead and achieve. The other neat thing is, even though the money's held in trust, we call it a HEM standard that we put in here, health, education, maintenance, and support. And the fact that if my kid gets sick, if they want to go to school, if they need support, housing, things like that, the trust can still pay for it, but they're not getting that money in their pocket. We can also make individual plans. I can change it for my son and daughter. They don't have to have the same plan. I'm sure my daughter's going to be an angel, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. My son might, he might push the limits a little bit, but we can make two different types of plans to protect them from themselves. If any children have special needs, we need to go ahead and create a plan inside that trust to protect them so they still get governmental assistance and that they don't lose that. Also protect them from predators, things like that. People who want to prey upon, take advantage of them, basically. One thing I wanted before we close out is we just don't do a trust at Anderson. 20 years ago, maybe, but what we found is it's a disservice to a client just doing a trust because we need a trust, but then we need these ancillary documents. This is for heirlooms, knickknacks, things like that. This is going to go ahead and designate to which individual gets what. This document right here is my favorite. It has saved more family relationships because it seems like families fight over the gun collection, the stamp collection, and the Hummel figurines. Well, this is the way that you go ahead and list those items down so those family fights don't occur. We also need, get busy in life and we forget to title assets in the trust. We put a pour over will in here that takes any assets that are left outside the trust and puts them in the trust so we don't have to go through a lengthy probate. It's a short form probate. If you have children, please specify a guardian. And you think, well, of course, that's not a big deal. Well, there's individuals who don't want to take care of your kids, and there's individuals who do want to take care of your kids, and there's individuals who are going to fight over taking care of your kids. It's important for you to make those decisions so that there's not those fights, so that at the time where your kids need, that the family comes together as opposed to be pulling them apart. Please, please, please don't let the state make those decisions for you. They're overworked. They don't have the insight that you do. Please get these. The guardianship is something that's very important. I've seen disasters happen. I've seen kids that were subject to things that they should never have been subject to. Please make sure if you have kids underneath the age of 18, please make sure they have you have a guardianship provision in there. If you have kids who have kids underneath the age of 18, please encourage them to go ahead and get the guardianship taken care of. Your financial power of attorney and your medical care power of attorney. If you're incapacitated, who's going to take care of your finances? Who's going to take care of your medical care decisions? You choose whether you want to be pain-free, what kind of artificial hydration, nourishment, do you want to, them pull the plug? And then also, I found it's very helpful for my clients to go ahead and designate your memorial instructions. It's a tough time for family, and for them to guesswork what you wanted this song, this this kind of thing. Just take care of it, outline it, and that will go inside your living trust binder, your estate plan. It's been amazing to have this one of the practice areas that we practice at Anderson. We have seen some really, really cool plans. We've seen some funny ones, like that the ashes have to be spread at the back of a boat because they want there in an ocean. Here's how everything comes together. And then there's a couple of things I want to share with you before we finish up. Your trust is going to hold your short-term activities, your long-term activities, your LLC that protects your cash and your capital, and your corporation, and also your personal residence. Retirement accounts are generally, because they have a designated beneficiary, it's going to be outside your trust. But really quick, some things I want to kind of prime you guys with is not necessarily adhering to a simpleton mindset that you might qualify, or maybe your spouse qualifies for what we call a real estate professional. It's removing the loss limitation, and we'll go over this in the full day of tax and asset protection. But what it does is your losses right here are going to be able to written off. You're not limited to what the normal losses are if you or your spouse qualifies as a real estate professional. The other thing I wanted to do is make sure, because you guys are holding property long term, it matters when you do repairs and replacing certain things. You can bypass the amortization on residential property of the 27.5 years. As long as you hold that property out for rent and it's available for use, now you get that bonus depreciation. So that's something we're going to be covering: when to put your properties in service, how to go ahead and get them into service, so you're not stuck at amortizing expenses over 27.5 years. Depreciation, one of the things we want to look is maybe doing a cost segregation. What a cost segregation does, it's phenomenal. And we have a contact that we use for our clients, and it's amazing to see the tax savings. What they do is they go through the property and they analyze all the different features of the property, and they break it down into different terms. So you're not limited to the 27.5 years. In this example I put in here really quickly, they got the annual depreciation, but then the bonus depreciation of 25%. In this case, an extra $27,545 just by doing a simple cost seg. Pretty fantastic the way the law is written. And again, want to share all these topics with you. HBC, they've working together. There's some things that we came up with to get you guys on the right foot. Obviously, I went like 100 miles an hour. I know I wanted to expose you guys to as many things as possible. It's really important. Giving you guys a full day of this, more tax strategies, more asset protection strategies, in ways to look at organizing your affairs to save on taxes and, protect them from plaintiff attorneys like I used to be. And then there's a really good book that my partner Clint Coons wrote, and it's called Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors. This was years in the making. Client mistakes, our mistakes have all been accumulated into this book. The other thing is, one size doesn't fit all. And something that's really important to us is that we just don't give, hey, choose this option or this option or this option for your plan. It's, hey, what are you doing right now? What have you done in the past? And what are you doing in the future? And let's go ahead and create an overall strategy with you. And so what you'll do is you're also given a strategy session with one of our senior strategists that they're going to sit down, look at where you are, where you're going, and what your situation is, and create a tailored blueprint for your situation that will over time evolve. But at least it gives you a blueprint of where you're at, where you're going, and it's your guiding light for investing. Please go here. It's no obligation here. Just go to aba.link.hbc and sign up, and you'll get your strategy session, the tickets to the one-day event, and also you'll get the digital copy of Clint's book for real estate investors. And man, I felt like I just ran a marathon at a sprint speed, but there was so much, Chris, that I wanted to cover.
I understand. And, everybody definitely take a look at going and signing up for this 3-day. I mean, Michael, we appreciate you being here, and we understand there's only so much you can go over. I mean, you're barely skimming the surface of this content that y'all cover, and it's already almost an overwhelming amount of information. So personally, I'm really looking forward to this 3-day. I think it's going to be very, very beneficial. If you're just starting out and you're setting up your entity, you definitely want to get with these guys over at Anderson. They're going to be able to show you exactly how you can set this up correctly. And be able to protect yourself with your assets, with tax strategies, and be able to get you on the right track, so that way you're going to be able to be profitable and successful as a real estate investor. Michael, I really appreciate you coming today and presenting this information. It's an honor to have you here, brother. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been fun, and I appreciate the opportunity. Again, the more people who know about this, we're all part of a tribe, right? We're all together. We're all, we all chose to kind of buck the rat race to try to get into this. And we need to be there for each other. And, it's just so many things that a little bit of knowledge can go a long way. So I appreciate you for having me. And for the audience out there, I wish you guys the best of success, not only in your lives, but also in your investing. And thanks for letting me be here.
Thank you so much. Hey, Michael, a quick question. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you guys, if they had any questions or they wanted to go ahead and start working with you guys and set up some things, what's the best way to get in touch with you and your company?
I would go directly to aba.link/HBC. The reason why is you're going to get the tickets, you're going to get the book, and then you'll also get the strategy session. And so, that's something that we've arranged with you. And, it makes it so, if you mention, hey, I want this, this, and this, some of our staff won't know what you're talking about in that regard. Unless you mentioned, HBC, just go to this link, sign up, and then one of our staff will reach out to you and get the strategy session scheduled, and also allow you to move forward with everything, and get that strategy session is so valuable. It's so funny because you hear, hey, put your rentals in an LLC. Well, maybe, but do you need a land trust coupled with the LLC? There's so many little questions that come up over time. We constantly run into new clients who have an existing structure, and it's because that's what their friend did. And it's like, oh man, if you would have just tweaked this one thing, we could have saved you in these taxes, and just simple things, because everyone's a little different. So definitely get that strategy session.
Absolutely. I mean, quite frankly, I've been doing this. February will be 11 years. I've been doing real estate investing full time, and I can't even begin to tell you how much information I still learn over year after year. I mean, I'm always finding new things and learning new ways to do things, and better ways to be able to cover myself. So I really appreciate being able to get with you guys and your company and be able to set things up to where everything's going to flow correctly, and I'm not going to have to worry about it in the long run.
Peace of mind. On that, it's kind of interesting you just mentioned that one of our clients had a fire happen at one of his properties, and it's horrible. There's a fire, but he said he felt so much more comforted knowing that he had his assets protected. There's things he's going to have to deal with, but knowing that he wasn't losing everything, no one died or anything like that, but just having that extra security of knowing that he was protected. He said that he was able to go back to sleep later in the night after dealing with it, which, if he wasn't protected, he probably would have had many of sleepless nights.
amongst many other anxieties, I'm sure.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being here and giving this presentation and talking to our group about all these wonderful things, all this knowledge. So thank you so much for being here. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this presentation. We really hope you got a lot out of it. And we really hope that you're going to be able to go to this link and sign up and get some more information from Anderson. Because like we said, this is barely skimming the surface. There's only so much we can put into this hour and a half presentation. So definitely look at this 3-day session. Until next time, guys, be good.
All right. Thanks, guys.